Hello, true believers. This is Bevels Only, and it is 3 a.m. in the morning. And I don't know why I'm up this late. Usually, I, I've been, I don't know, I have trouble sleeping lately. I've got a lot of things on my mind, and when I have a lot of things on my mind, I just have trouble falling asleep. And one of the things on my mind right now is this article right here. Justice remains elusive for 15-year-old girl who was killed after filing sex assault cases versus two local Sir cops. And this is actually the Fabel Pineda story. And if you're not familiar with the story, there's a lot of articles online that's available about her story, and even here on YouTube. If you type in Fabel Pineda, you'll see a whole bunch of articles on her. A lot of videos regarding her case about what happened. And here, there's even one here. This Stand for Truth has like 256,962 views. So, what the story is about is, hold on, let me pause this because I'll end up watching it. Pause it real quick. So let me summarize the story. This is one of these quarantine crimes. I was following it on the news while I was detained. And what makes this interesting is, well, one, it's during quarantine. Number two, involves a young girl. And three, it involves the police. And so how it started, I think back in July, in this article over here, justice remains elusive, is in, what is this? September. So August, so like 3 or 4 months later. So let me summarize what happened. So during quarantine, there was these two girls. They're two cousins. One's 15 years old, one's 18 years old. And you could see the 15-year-old right here in this picture. And they were at a birthday party. And it's at that time, you're not supposed to be having parties. So the police showed up and said, well, come with us, you two young pretty girls, and we're going to take you to the police station and arrest you for violating quarantine protocol. So, but instead of taking them down to the police station, I mean, you could read all this online, or you could watch all this on YouTube. But it's hard to watch on YouTube because it's all in Tagalog. It's all in the local language. But I'll summarize it anyway. So instead of taking the girls to the police or to the proper authorities or to the proper, since one is a minor, to the proper social workers, they took them by a lake instead, and the 18-year-old cousin was raped while the 15-year-old cousin over here was molested. So it wasn't the rape itself. I think probably they're talking about penetration. Didn't actually happen, but rape is, it depends how I define rape. I guess over here in the Philippines, you would need penetration for it to be considered rape. But in some countries, I mean, rape can happen without it. But so after the incident happened, the girls filed a case against the police after the rape and molestation. For the 15-year-old, she filed the molestation charges, while the 18-year-old filed rape charges. And what happened was, on her way, so this was they filed it at the Women's and Children Women's Help Desk. So I'm familiar with this. I got filed a case in the Women's Help Desk also, but that's another blog in itself. The point I wanted to bring over here were how the police are involved in a crime now. In this case, rape, and I'm familiar with that charge also because I've been charged with rape and and molestation charges. So so while she was filing for the rape charges, she filed she the 15-year-old filed a case, but she had to follow up. So apparently the police officer, the lady police officer working at the desk, was stonewalling her. I assume that she has a close relationship. The police officer has a close relationship with the police that's involved. That's where the case is being filed against. So she was apparently intentionally stonewalling her, telling her all to come back. Maybe at first I thought maybe her cousin or her needed a rape kit or something like that, and then it's like, oh, we don't have any rape kits today, so come back tomorrow or the next day. But anyway, she followed up on the case, and what initially what you do when you file a complaint to somebody is you do this blotter report, which only takes like 15-20 minutes. You just write their name and locate address and personal information, and then write your complaint into that blotter, and then it's on schedule to be investigated. Well, they didn't do that the first time she came, so she followed up and performed the blotter. And during this initiation of the case against the police that molested and raped them, I they asked for a police. Apparently, they asked for a police escort to bring them home, or to escort them home because, excuse me, I'm kind of getting sleepy as we're talking about this, so you're gonna have to bear with me. I don't know if I'm gonna be uploading this video or not, especially since I don't think I'm in my in good form to be vlogging at this time. I'll maybe I'll just load it anyway, just for completeness sake. So the lady police officer responds to the request for escort and said something to the effect of like, "What do you want us to do now? Babysit you?" So she refused to give them any police protection while they're filing this case. So the Fabel Pineda, the 15-year-old, was on a scooter with her male cousin and her uncle on their way home. And while they were on the way home, they were, oh yeah, I think they ran into, or they were stopped, or they physically ran into another scooter where there was two individuals riding in tandem, wearing a mask, wearing a helmet so you couldn't recognize them, and shot Fabel Pineda 5 times in the head and body. So, and this was the main reason why Fabel was asking for a police escort home, because the police have threatened her when after the molestation and rape, saying if you tell anybody that we molested you and raped you, we're going to kill you. We're going to murder you, is what they said. And she said they've been getting death threats, so that's why they asked for an escort. And this was when the lady police officer refused. And then on their way home, she was shot down, gunned down in cold blood by these two individuals. So the update over here is justice remains elusive for the 15-year-old girl. Is apparently, if you read the article, she made a statement. This is where it gets weird. Apparently, Fabel wrote a statement saying what happened, what the police did, And the problem with the statement was that it wasn't signed. She didn't sign it. She wrote it, but she didn't sign it. So technically, even though she wrote it, and probably there are witnesses to corroborate that she wrote it, or family members that she wrote it, I think the judge isn't going to allow it, or the court ruling is going to say that it's not, since it wasn't signed, it can't be used in court again. So I think what this article is saying, this is the Manila Bulletin. I'm sure they have reliable sources, that the case of molestation, sexual molestation, was dismissed because of a technicality. Number one, the witness is dead. Number two, she can't, even though she has a statement where she can talk from the dead, it's useless. It's invalid because apparently she didn't sign it. If she was alive, she would sign it and they could use it. But in this case, it was dismissed. Now, apparently they're saying, okay, the molestation charge is dismissed, but the murder case hasn't been dismissed. Now that's going to be difficult because I don't think they're able to identify, because the two gunmen got away. So I don't think the witnesses are going to be able to. It's just, what do you call that? Circumstantial evidence. And like, okay, just a coincidence that same day that she filed the rape case, she got shot. So you would think the prime suspects would be the police that they're filing a case against. But yes, but you would still need evidence with a weapon, with a witness. And if you don't have any witnesses or weapons, then you're kind of lacking the evidence to convict for murder. So this is the scary part about this incident, that all you have to do for the police to avoid being prosecuted here is to kill the complainant, which is very sad. So here in the Philippines, it's almost like legal criminal. It's like you could perform criminal behavior, and as long as you kill the person that you performed this criminal behavior with, or who you violated, or so whoever the police committed a crime against, and just as long as they kill them before any type of evidence is supplied, then the police get to dismissed on a technicality, because the witness that's needed for a successful prosecution or to even initiate the case is dead. And I bring this up because it's kind of a given that if you file any case against the police, it's automatic that you create a target for yourself and for your family members. I mean, they could have easily, these two gunmen riding on those scooters could have easily shot the cousin and uncle, and I think I remember that they did receive, the family and the complainants received death threats if they filed the case. I mean, the police already told them that if you tell anybody, we're going to kill you. So they filed a complaint, and now they're dead. So that's kind of so what we have here is a catch-22. So, okay, you get raped by the police. Okay, that's fine. But, can you file a case against them? Because now you risk murder on top of that. I mean, it's bad enough that you got raped, but the police, so by the police, and then now you have to worry about or get murdered by the police on top of that after you get raped. So there's just, so I just want to point out there's this culture of impunity when it comes to the local police. Now, before we go on, I should have said this in the very beginning when I started talking about this article, that not all police are like this. So when you're listening to this, I'm sure there are good police out there, just like there are bad police out there, just like there's just like any culture or any race, there's going to be good people and there's going to be bad people. So I'm just talking about specifically the police involved in this rape, slay crime. So the disclaimer is this does not apply to all the police, but we have to keep in mind that the Philippines is famous for corruption. I mean, the reputation is substantiated, especially with extrajudicial killings. Extrajudicial killings is basically a death sentence without due process. So you don't have to be convicted of any crime. You can be shot on the spot. Now, what's funny about being killed over extrajudicial killing, most people in jail will tell you that it's better to get shot or get killed, better to get shot and get killed than go to prison. Because while getting shot is quick death, versus prison is kind of a slow grinding death. And if you don't have any money to hire a private lawyer, then the odds are that it's gonna be a long, slow, painful death versus a quick death. But the point I wanted to bring up, why I started making this video, why I wanted to make this video, is to kind of shine a light on, like I said, the culture of impunity when it comes to the local police here, the local law enforcement. So you have to decide, okay, if the police commit a crime and you're the victim of this crime, do you really want to compound the problem by reporting the police that committed the crime? Say the police raped you. So a lot of times what happens when the police commit a crime against you, it goes unreported, and for this very same reason, that you give the police now a reason to terminate your life because you filed a case against them. Never mind that they raped you or they committed a crime against you. Now you have to worry about dying now. So why you bring this up now? Well, this is something that's important. It's something I had to think about, because remember what I went through and why the police were so adamant about making sure that I never get out. But the fact is that they had no evidence for any of the crimes that I was charged with, but that didn't stop them. And so initially, we all know, it's like, let's already say, let's in my case, let's talk about my case. That let's bring it back to how I relate this story. Excuse me if I'm just kind of my thoughts are kind of all over the place. It's late, but I wanted to get this. It was just one of these things that I'm thinking about that I need to relay to the general public about my situation. So we all know that number one, that yes, I was in an entrapment operation, and number two, we have to consider, okay, entrapment. You know, there's there's a right way, there's a legal and there's legal and illegal entrapment, and if and apparently the number one thing when it comes to entrapment is you can't induce somebody to commit a crime. I mean, if the person, if you have to push the person and push the person into committing that crime, and then the crime is then the entrapment is illegal. What makes the crime so illegal on top of that, I repeat, is like in this case with the 15-year-old over here, the minor, uh, is that the 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 people that participated in the entrapment are minors. I repeat. So I'll come out clean and said yes, the girls are minors. But is it, what was I gonna say? You know, is it the question is it legal for the police to use minors, actual minors, in an entrapment? Now, what is legal for the people to use is they can use adults posing as minors, which is perfectly legal. You can have adults and they could be 20 years old, 25 years old, but they could say they're 14 years old, and that's perfectly legal. But what you can't do is have actual minors below 18 participate in an entrapment situation. That's never been heard of. I tried to Google it earlier, like situations where it's legal for police officers to use actual real minors in an entrapment situation. And it's so ridiculous, Google doesn't even register it. It doesn't even exist. It only exists here in the Philippines where the police would actually use real minors. Now, by law, we have to consider the law over here. By law, that is child abuse in itself. I repeat, using minors in a criminal entrapment situation, in a real criminal case or real criminal situation, to induce somebody to commit a crime by using real minors is child abuse in itself. I repeat, you cannot, it is illegal for the police to use minors in an entrapment because that is considered, I think, RA 7610. I think you need to look it up. That is considered child abuse. The problem, like I said, that night when I was arrested, there was a lot of things that happened that night, and I was there, so you're going to be hearing it from the person who was in the middle, so you'll be hearing it firsthand experience. What happened? Okay, so there was a lot of people there. I was definitely the belle of the ball because I was the guest of honor. Everybody else was in on it. So you have to consider, okay, that night there was 7 police officers. There was John Donato Pares, or he was the one he was the one in charge, and there were 6 other officers. There was 2 lady officers. So there were 7 altogether, and now there was 2 news medias from what I remember. I'm sure you guys can all confirm this. And there was the parents, the mothers of the minors that were there. They were all there. They all showed up at the same time. So I know. How do I know? Oh, because I was there. And a social worker and I think an aunt was there with him. So they had 2 cars full of people, and then I'm sure the media had their own cars. So there was like 4 cars following. So this party was gonna go. So this party was gonna push, no matter how much I pushed back, no matter how much I said, is this really necessary? Do we really need to do this? And the answer is yes, because there's so many people that are going to be crashing this party. It's not even funny. What happened that night? I remember that night I was tired. I had a long week, and they called me up and said, "Hey, could we have dinner and dinner and some fun afterwards?" And I said, "Are you sure? Are you guys on drugs?" I mean, usually they don't initiate these kind of conversations, but in this situation they did. And I was at the point where I was gonna blow it off, and I was gonna not show up, but I did. And then but they kept calling me and asking, "Come on, we gotta go. We're hungry, and we'll show you a good time." And I said, are you sure this is something that you guys want to do? Because we've been through this conversation before, and it usually it's just I think one of the comments says it's just a lot of nothing burger. So I said, fine. I actually got some good news anyway for them. I had some money that was sent for their braces, and I actually, if you watch the vlog of that night, I actually vlogged that night. That was going to be one of my unlisted videos. So but anyway, without getting too much into detail, so I was gonna plan on just not showing up, but at the last minute they were like calling me instead of text messaging me or sending me messages to Messenger, which I could ignore. They decided to call, and I go, wow, it's never happened before. It must be really serious. But anyway, they were able to convince me, fine, we'll get something to eat. Then after that, we'll probably just go home, and then nothing will happen. But that's not the case. And then 2.5 years later, 3 years later, here we are talking about it. But anyway, back to what I was saying about so now one of the crimes, or one crime, I don't want to get into too much other subjects, is that child abuse. And that's, like I said, then there's other things after that. And we can, and one of the comments, I forgot who it was, what is the motivation over here? Obviously, greed and jealousy are the number one reasons why somebody would commit a crime. So now, now that my case is finished, I mean practically finished, because I'm vlogging, so there's just a few minor details now that I need to take care of. Now the big question is what to do about it. Okay, so obviously it's documented that the police over here committed a crime. Why did they commit that crime? Is like over here is they committed like here the police, they'll commit a crime to cover up another crime. What could that crime that they be covering up be? Are you saying that Bewat only that they committed a crime and they're using this crime to cover up their crime? Possibly. I'm just saying that here we have a story, a perfectly innocent young victim over here by the police, and their only crime was that they were violating quarantine. But that doesn't mean they should be, just because they violated quarantine policy doesn't mean that they should be raped or molested or murdered on top as a punishment for violating quarantine rules. So same thing over here that we're talking about in our situation over here. So the police, as you can see, are capable. The police involved here, not every police. So let me just be clear, okay? The problem with that statement, yes, that not all police are corrupt, but it only takes one, and there's more than one corrupt police that's out there, that's at large. So I'm just giving you little bits and pieces to set this up. Okay, I'm setting this up. Well, what are you setting up, Bevels only? I'm setting up that what we have over here is police committing crime and committing another crime to cover up their crime. And that's kind of something you have to worry about. Okay, so obviously in my situation, the police committed a crime by using minors, which is considered child abuse. So technically, or for all practical purposes, they could be filed administrative cases against them, and possibly they could have I could easily prove, or it could be easily proven that they committed a crime. That's one That's just, like I said, just the tip of the iceberg. There's more to come. There's more to come. But I'm just stating the obvious that everybody saw what happened that night. There were two minors with me. There was a whole party that was set up and showed up, and for all the people to enjoy, to make this happen. And for why? Okay, that we'll get into, but another time, because this vlog is getting long. But the point I wanted to make here is that they committed a crime by using minors in entrapment, and you could actually report that to the Department of Justice, to human rights. It's like there's laws against using the police putting children in danger. I mean, if they have reports that I'm a, they allegedly, or actually it's not allegedly, they do have preliminary reports saying or complaining that I am a rapist and that I am a human trafficker. I repeat, rapist and human trafficker. The police had this information already in hand before they arrested me. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so the police already I have been reported to the police that I'm a rapist and a trafficker. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, what you're going to use is the same minors that filed those complaints to entrap me. Now, if you explain that to the Department of Justice, you're going to explain that to the human rights. They're going to say that's a clear violation. That's a big no-no. I think somebody in the comments, I forgot his name, something with an H, said, yeah, that's breaking the law. And the people who do this should be filed charges against. Now, yes, you could do that, but then you run into the same problem that this 15-year-old girl has. Okay? This 15-year-old girl can't defend herself. That's why she asked for a police escort, because her life was threatened. And the police said, not only was she stonewalled by the female officer in the women's desk, the women's and children's help desk, she was stonewalled and she was denied the security needed after she's explained that she's had death threats, which we could easily assume from the police officers themselves, because they're the ones that they're going to lose their job, and they're going to go to jail for what they did. Now, like I said, it's common knowledge over here. Now, if you do that, you're basically making yourself a target for the police to perform an extrajudicial killing on you, like they did to this girl. So they raped her, and on top of that, to cover up the crime that they did, so they don't have to be convicted, they have to kill or murder the witness, the main witness, which is what they did over here. So you can't really say to me that, oh, you don't have any evidence of that. And the fact that the girl was killed the same day she filed the complaint, it clearly points to the people that raped her, that she said that molested her, and those people are the police, or that person that molested her, because she's dead, is going to go free on a technicality. It's going to be hard to prove molestation, because even though she has a statement, it wasn't signed, and it's even going to be harder to prove that she was murdered by the police because she's dead. So that's pretty much the issue we have to worry about over here. It's like, if yes, the police committed a crime with rape, but do you want to make it worse by Sorry, I forgot that this cell phone camera has a 30-minute limit, I think. I don't know where I left off. But anyway, so now we have to ask ourselves a question here, it's like, if you talk to anybody here, or you talk to any police, and you explain to them what happened, the first thing that they'll tell you is just let it go. Because if you do that, then you run the larger risk of what's worse than rape is murder. And I don't know what the I mean the can you make an argument which is a worse crime? I mean, I would say rape is worse than murder because when you die, you really don't feel anything afterwards. But when you're raped, it's just the trauma just kind of follows you for the rest of your life, and it'll affect you in ways that you don't really understand how it's going to affect you. So it's kind of it's more suffering, the rape trauma in itself. So, but it's hard for me to make this as a man. It's hard for me to make an argument one way or another. But I'm sure they're both terrible crimes. I'm just saying now that I'm kind of in that situation where, like, what the hell do I do? The police committed a crime, and so in her situation, the police committed a crime to cover up a crime. But what if we have a crime, so the police commit a crime so they can perform another crime? Is also another possible situation. So the police perform a crime so they can perform another crime. So in this situation, let's say the police use actual minors, which is by law child abuse, which is a crime in itself, to create a situation of entrapment. Okay. Now, what if you did that to commit another crime? So now, not only normally that would be fine. The problem is that the person that they did this to, which is me, is innocent. Now, that's a big fly on their ointment. I go, well, if we did this, we did that, and this guy is a rapist and a child trafficker, then it doesn't matter what laws we broke. We put a child rapist and a child trafficker in jail. Okay, but you need evidence to convict someone. You can't, child rape and child trafficking, that's 40, 80 years here. I would die in prison. So you need hard evidence. You need actual evidence and corroboration of testimony to convict somebody without parole or pardon for the rest of their life, to spend in prison, to just die in prison. That wasn't something that the police considered. The police considered, it's like, okay, what's your point? And like I said, that's the hardest part in this situation. So can the police perform a crime to commit another crime? And now the problem is the person that their victim is innocent. So now it comes out. Now we have to decide, what are we gonna do? Because nobody wants to end up like this. If you're okay, the police commit a crime to commit another crime, and then the person's innocent, what are you seeking? Justice? What in the Philippines, justice means death. Most people that are asking for justice are already dead, just like this Fabel Pineda. Okay, so that's what we have to keep in mind. Okay, if you file a case against the police, you're automatically just sticking the sleeping bear, into just saying, okay, the police are gonna do something about it, and the number one thing they're gonna do is get rid of the witness, just like they did over here. So it creates a very difficult, very challenging, very sticky, very complicated situation when it comes to the police. And we have to ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do next? Anyway, that just gives you a more appetizer on what's going on. Oh, you know what I'll do? Since I'm kind of in a good mood. Remember I said that the police had financial incentive to file all those cases against me? Not only double jeopardy, but triple jeopardy. So 3 different officers of the court, judges from 3 different courts, I had to dismiss the case, which I will get into. I was the, like I said, number one, job security, because they broke the law. And number two is financial incentive. They had financial incentive. Now you're thinking financial incentive, money, all right? So what I'm going to show you is next is how much, okay, and how I got. I'll show you a number in black and white how much they got to try to convict me as much as possible to make sure that I never get out and I never see the light of day. So let me show you that number just to give you a little teaser, how much was involved in terms of financial incentive to make sure that I never see the light of day. So let me go get that paperwork, and that will set up a video in the future, but I'll show you in black and white how much financial incentive we're dealing with, and where I got it from, where I got this, where my sources are, I can't tell you right now. I will, of course, I will definitely tell you in the future, but right now, that's just kind of to give you something to ponder with. Remember, my last question was, where did this financial incentive come from? And let me show you the actual number, one of the actual numbers. Well, let me just say, here's a number. It's a black and white that you could all grasp and say, "Ooh, that's a large amount." They could see, you could say why. We could see why they're very motivated. They're financial, because that's a significant financial incentive. So let me go get it, and then I will end it with that piece of information. I'll be right back. Okay, here we go. You see that number right there? That number, the five is kind of faded, but that number is actually 475,688 pesos and 59 centavos. I repeat, 475,000 pesos and 688 pesos and 59 centavos. So that's basically about $10,000 worth of reasons. Like I said, $10,000 here in black and white. How I got this document, it's here in black and white was their financial incentive. Okay, this document is very dangerous because this shows what the financial incentive was, even though there was no evidence, even though there was no crime. But there's definitely enough reason over here to make sure that I go away for life, is because they have to make sure that this document with this number over here for almost a half a million pesos, I repeat, a half a million pesos, never gets out. So here is that number. So if you guys remember, I was saying, they had financial incentive, or what kind of financial incentive are we talking about? Well, here's one number that we're dealing with here when it comes to this situation, is 500,000 pesos was involved in this situation that complicated this situation. It's like, what the hell? What in the world? And when I saw this, I just shook my head and said, this is just not gonna be one of those days when I just kind of go, why me? Anyway, there's a half a million reasons why I should never get out, and why this had to go to three different judges to make, and those three different judges said there's nothing here to convict him with. Anyway, this is Bebot's Only. I'll let you know where this document came from sometime in the near future, but as you can see, the kind of how messy the situation is, which is why I have no idea what I'm going to do about this. Anyway, this is Bebot's Only. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. Let me know where you think this came from. Thanks for watching. Oh, and one more thing. I didn't really wrap up this. I felt like I didn't do a good job wrapping this story up. I mean, what do you what do I think is what's going to happen? What do I think should happen? What's happening? And in this situation, what is the solution? You're asking yourself. It sounds like a lose lose scenario, a no win situation. And what's the solution? There was a problem, and what looking back or thinking about it or analyzing it, what should have done? Well, what should have happened? The problem was that the problem was the girl filed the case against the police. The police told her that we're gonna kill you if you filed a complaint against us after raping you. Then obviously, I hate to be some kind of neo-Nazi. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? What's that one where I misogynist, some neo-Nazi misogynist, and said, "Well, she made her decision. She filed a case against the police. What was she expecting?" And is that's like blaming the victim mentality? Well, yes and no. They said if she didn't file the case, then she'd be alive right now. Well, what about the rape? Well, it happened, but should you throw by filing a case? Should you throw away your life over the rape? Is the question that's being asked here? It's like, okay, yeah, you're raped. It's terrible. The person deserves to go to jail, but that's the police that did it. So if you file a case against them and then they'll kill you, then you got a problem. Then you got a bigger problem. In her situation, she doesn't have the wherewithal or the means to file a case against the police. Okay, she doesn't have the influence. She doesn't have the resources to be able to safely file a case against the police. I mean, there not only this situation. I remember reading the news. One girl was raped by police also, and she filed a complaint. And while she was she was walking using her flip flops. Someone in a scooter drove by and shot her, and there goes the rape case on a technicality. So if you're a girl and you have no means of, like, for example, private security or private transportation, then let it go is the answer, because you don't have the wherewithal to then, and then you're saying, oh, that's tragic. Yes, that's how it is here in the Philippines. It's tragic. If you don't have the means, then you just let it go, because you could end up like this. But if she had the means, she could she had private transportation, or she could have a private escort or some kind of armed escort, or something to help her file this complaint. Somebody, but she didn't. So she made her bed, and it's it's like she asked for it. So what is the solution? Well, the solution, it sounds horrible. It's terrible. But here in the Philippines, death is a solution to almost everything. I mean, death is a solution. It's not a problem. I mean, in America, it's a problem. But over here, death, you die, you mourn for 2 weeks, and then you move on. And, the living don't really have much time for the dead. I mean, I could sit here and probably I spent 2 hours on it, and that's it. But problem solved either way. It's like you file a case, that's you just trying to solve the problem. But if you're gonna file a case, then don't be an easy target, and that's what she did. And that's is that blaming the victim? No, it's the reality. It's the same thing as you don't leave a expensive car unlocked in, like, downtown Detroit with like a lot of expensive luggage or expensive looking things in the back seat, and then you're asking for it. Or, for example, getting drunk at a fraternity party. Yeah, you're definitely asking for it. I mean, you can make the argument is that's so messed up, Bev. It's like, can a girl have a drink or get drunk without the fear of getting raped? Yeah, you could, but you could get drunk. Just don't do it in a fraternity party. Do it in the safety of your own home. You know, how much fun is that? That's like drinking with your mother-in-law. Well, then you can't have everything. So the point I'm saying here, it's yes, death is tragic, but also death is a solution in this situation. I am, like I said, I'm contemplating because I feel like I'm in a similar situation, but and you saw the reason. There was a half a million reasons why for for me to be quiet permanently. Half a million pesos reasons, but it's but at least I have the means to be able to have a certain amount of safety, keep knowing this in mind. You know, I could hire private escort. I have private transportation. I could relocate. The point I'm making here is I have the means and the wherewithal. But the question is, is that something? Is that a path that I want to go down on, towards? And the answer is I don't know. I go back and forth. Of course, when you're detained, for lack of a better word, that's all you think about is just like the Count of Monte Cristo. All you think about is vengeance, vendetta, day in, day out. It's like you think about every decision you made up to then, and why, and how, and the evil, the greed, the jealousy, the kind of tragic, evil actions that people inflict upon each other. And yeah, you're asking about what's only, but well, for your safety's sake, what are you gonna do? You should get out of there. Well, I don't, I don't know. I'm not the type to run away from injustice or from just downright evil, nasty, because I mean, what don't we say that for evil to happen, and this to happen over and over again, is for one good person to run away and not do anything? Am I that good person to run away and do nothing for this to keep going, ongoing? And as you can see, it happened. It's happening. It's happening to different people. I don't know. It's a question you have to ask yourself. And it's a question that I go back and forth on, and maybe you guys can help me out with the answer. Anyway, this is Bev's Only. I said a lot. And let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.